You can see here that I have drawn an outline of Mecklenburg County where Charlotte is located. Charlotte is located approximately halfway down and just about in the middle of the county. Academics, as I said, have proven that cities grow in very predictable patterns. And there's always some kind of geographic barrier that separates the space. So as you can see, we have a major highway that runs through Charlotte. It goes to the north to Richmond, about 6 hours to the north, and it goes to the southeast to Atlanta, about 4 hours to the south. Charlotte is the largest city between Washington and Atlanta. There's also a major highway, Interstate 77, that runs down through South Carolina into Georgia and onto Florida, and it goes to the north through Virginia, West Virginia, and on up to Ohio and the Great Lakes region. These roads, as you can see, divide the space into quadrants. There's two other main roads that have a huge impact on dividing space in Charlotte, and one of those is an interstate road, a state road, not an interstate road, Highway 74, which goes to the ocean about 4 hours to the east, and it goes to the west about 2 to 3 hours. It goes to the Blue Ridge Parkway to the west. The other highway that's important is Highway 16, which starts at the little town of Waxhaw and goes up through South Mecklenburg County, across the city, across the lake region, and on up to the Blue Ridge Parkway again, about 3 to 4 hours to the northwest. Now, back in the olden days, there used to be a saying called the other side of the tracks. And there is a railroad track in Charlotte. That's what this little dotted line is. It actually runs up through this region and goes on up to actually the northeast. It's the Amtrak line. It also carries a lot of freight and people. And there's a train station right north of the city. So when the city began to develop and people started moving out to the suburbs, they moved out to this part to the south. They started building their houses down in this general region. So we have a lovely neighborhood of Dilworth and Myers Park and Eastover, Elizabeth, Plaza Midwood. All of these neighborhoods are older, are historic. They have a lot of arts and crafts style cottages, some very beautiful mansions, some smaller but very pretty cottage style homes. A lot of renovation has gone on in the last few years in this general area where people are either tearing down homes that don't have a lot of architectural value or doing total renovations and adding second stories because they want to be in this general vicinity. It's close to town and it's very beautiful, heavy tree canopy. But back in the 1920s, the governor of the state of North Carolina owned an estate here at what is now called South Park, which was fairly close to Charlotte, but far enough out to be considered the country at that time. Because he was also known as the Good Roads Governor, there was a lot of good roads that got built in this general vicinity. It was also a lot of very high-end and beautiful homes in this region. You had the governor's mansion here, and so this area started to become very upscale and desirable. Well, when you have upscale and desirable, everybody wants the things that come with that. They want the nice schools and the nice roads, and they want the amenities, the restaurants, the shopping. And so all of that tended to get located in this general area. And since everyone wants those things, people tried to get as close to this as they could. But of course, this was expensive. And so as you move further closer up towards Highway 74, which is also known as Independence Boulevard, or further to the south, towards the railroad track, there's another road that runs along here called South Boulevard. It began to get a little bit more middle class, less expensive as you got away from this core. Now there's a saying in the real estate industry that whenever you want to move into a city and you've never been there before and you don't know anywhere to go, you should find the most prestigious road in town and try and find a home there. Go out that road until you can afford to buy a property and you'll never go wrong. Well, in Charlotte, that road is going to be Providence Road, which is Highway 16, on this side of town, on the south side of town. Now, when the things that people want to live near, the good schools, the nice roads, and the shopping, and all those things are located on this side of town, and they live near there, they put the things they tend not to want to live near on the other side of town. And so we have, on this side of town, the airport. We have a tank farm up here. Kinder Morgan has a storage facility. It's an oil storage facility over on this side of town. because these highways carry so many goods through the region, there's a huge number of trucking companies that are located all along here. Lots of interstate trucking traffic goes this way. It also goes north and south on 77, and you have a lot of industrial things going along this area. So this is where most of the residential tended to locate, in this low corner. And it got pretty crowded down there. And so in the mid-60s, they started noticing we needed to do something about that, and some very wise people bought some land up in this part of the county and decided that the state of North Carolina needed a university in Charlotte, and they started the University of North Carolina at Charlotte campus. They could get a lot of land out there, it wasn't real expensive, and so they built this beautiful university that now has over 20,000 students and is beautiful crown jewel in Charlotte's cap. Another thing that happened that changes the patterns was IBM located generally in this area here, because IBM was moving out of New York and they wanted to come to Charlotte, and they were heavily encouraged to go to this area because it was going to bring in more development and growth on the north side. So IBM came in here, a lot of technical companies came in here. Wells Fargo has their huge technology center is up here, employs over 7,000 people. All of that in this general location here. So you can see a rather intense pattern forming here. You've got industrial, you've got trucking, you've got the airport, you've got the train tracks, more industrial along this area, which is kind of creating a little barrier. So the housing that got put in this general area tended to be more blue collar and a little bit lower class, not bad, but lower class. And so growth, development, and new construction tended to jump over this and went up to a little town called Huntersville. Huntersville was a little mill village back in the day. It didn't really exist there because of Charlotte. It was only there, had a little textile mill, and it was convenient, but didn't really depend on Charlotte for its existence. There was about 30,000 people who lived in Huntersville in 1980, and it went from 3,000 to over 30,000 in a 10-year period of time. There's a little town above that called Cornelius, and a lovely little town above that called Davidson, and this is where the Davidson University is located. It's called the Princeton of the South. It's a beautiful, walkable, very charming campus environment. Cornelius is a smaller, again, was a mill town, but has been going through a lot of urban restoration and has a nice new traditional feel to it. And then Huntersville is where most of the shopping has been. It's also close to Lake Norman and Mountain Island Lake, where Charlotte gets its drinking water. There's a river that runs down the western side of Mecklenburg County, creating Lake Wylie, Mountain Island Lake, and Lake Norman. And in my next video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how the city grew out to the edges.